Mighty Action Heroes has graciously offered a few spots on their Mighty list, their Genesis NFTs for their game, to viewers of my channel. In order to participate, simply like this video and provide a comment below stating what's your favorite Battle Royale style game, and secondly, your Discord ID. I'm going to select randomly from those that respond within the first 72 hours after the launch of this video. Stay tuned for another chance to win that I'll share later on in the interview. And so with that, on with the show. What is going on, Metaverse? Animositas here, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. I've got with me Abel from the Mighty Action Heroes team. He's responsible for partnerships for the Big Bear Syndicate, and really looking forward to what he has to say about one of the coolest upcoming projects that I've seen. They've got a Battle Royale style game that really is leaning into I would say historical interest in action heroes. So whether you grew up in the 80s, the 90s, or the 2000s, you probably had some action heroes that you were interested in. And Abel and his team are really focusing on how can we recreate some of that excitement in a way that you as the player can engage in. And so Abel, really glad to have you here with us today. Why don't you share a little bit about your background and how you came to Web3 gaming?
Hey Annie, yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the great intro as well. I feel like you've done like half of my job here. But yeah, no, hi, I'm Abel. I'm a product manager at Mighty Bear Games, and really I've been with the team since day one. Prior to Mighty Bear, I met the founders of the team at a previous studio called Nonstop Games, which was a King studio in Singapore. And we've been working together, for I would say close to 6, 7 years now. And prior to that, I've been in the game industry for about 11 years, doing everything from QA all the way to design to product management. And I was a product lead on the last two games that we shipped here at Mighty Bear. So I was a product lead on Battle Royale and Disney Melee Mania, both of them Apple Arcade exclusives. And so was really fortunate to be able to work with the team, but also with the partnerships team at Disney, and learning a lot from those projects. And so yeah, we're focusing on Mighty Action Heroes next, which is our first foray into Web3, and really excited to kind of finally be able to contribute meaningfully in this space. And yeah, so really happy that we now moved the team over to Web3. Basically, the whole team is now focusing on delivering this project.
That's awesome. And when I first found out about Mighty Action Heroes, I was a little bit confused trying to figure out what the game structure was. I feel like I've got a better idea now. But for someone who's new to it, I think you have the advantage that most of our audience probably isn't familiar with the project coming in. And what would you want to share as some highlights for what you're building right now with Mighty Action Heroes?
Yeah, so Mighty Action Heroes is a multiplayer battle royale game, and as you kind of alluded to, it's the theme of the game is set in the 80s and 90s, kind of the action movie genre theme. And so if you see kind of a lot of the art that we put out there, a lot of it is kind of referencing or based off on that genre, that time period, where there's like stuff like Terminator, The Predator, those really classic 80s action movies. As a team, we really wanted to make a game in that, time frame and that space for a long time. And we felt like this was the right genre, was the right audience and the time to go into it. And for us as a team, we've worked on, the last two games were, in terms of genre, were both like a battle royale and an arena brawler. So both for multiplayer, both for real time. And we've basically built up this playbook of, how to build, really fun, accessible games that you can jump into even if you have no experience of these genres. So Apple Arcade, as you know, is a very kind of family-focused platform where they focus on family sharing, parents being able to, select games for their kids to play with, and everyone can share the same account. And so for us, it was really important to figure out, how to build games in a way that, had a very low skill floor, but a very high skill ceiling. So,
Hmm.
as somebody who has, played a lot of Fortnite or standard kind of battle royale games, how can we continue to make those games more, our game more interesting for those players, but still, even a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old can pick up the
Hmm.
game and play. And so We've also, adapted the art style of those games. So Battle Royale, has no violence. It has weapons, but you're firing like a baguette launcher.
Mm.
Launching sausages at enemies. So it's kind of low violence. High fun, as we like to call it internally. And so we want to take that, into Web3, and we started thinking about ways we can make the game a little bit more interesting, and I can discuss a little bit more in detail later. But you know, at the high level, what we're really all about is really creating fun games. And we've built up the team and the expertise to do it in the last 2 years, and the team is now grown to about close to 50 plus. And I would say, we've stuck together over the course of the last two games, and now, we're fully focused on developing Mighty Action Heroes.
Yeah, so I think that's a great overview. It sounds like the genre itself, you're just trying to explore it in some interesting ways, and whether that's the setting. And I'll comment. I really like the background you've got here. I think it definitely shows some of the theme, the lore, the environments, the artwork that y'all are building to with that style. Feels very nostalgic for me. Some of the movies that you mentioned in the action genre were things that my parents may not have let me watch when I was real little, but I grew up with a lot of those over the years, and so definitely something I'm sure there's going to be a market for. That said, the battle royale genre is definitely a challenging space. There's a lot of good products out there. There aren't a lot of products that are out there yet for Web3 gaming, though, and so what would you say is the unique value that you're trying to bring to the space in Web3?
Yeah, so we're a team that have previously shipped games at a very quick pace, at a high quality. So with Battle Royale, actually, we've developed and shipped that game in about 6 to 7 months. So it was a very short time frame, and we really wanted to make it to be one of the launch partners for Apple Arcade. So this being not our first Battle Royale game as well, as a team, we built up the kind of know-how and knowledge, and of course, we also want to bring aboard the learnings that we've had from running those games for close to 2 to 3 years now as a live service, with all the updates and live events that we've put out. And so, we've basically developed this kind of shorthand or this playbook for taking these types of complex games and then developing really fun, accessible experiences. So, with Mighty Action Heroes, we know that the audience makeup is slightly different. We've also, know that there are a couple other Royale games out there, that are being developed, and actually we're very close to those teams as well. We speak quite regularly. So we want to make a competitive experience that anybody should be able to pick up and play and enjoy in minutes. So the game will be free to play. You'll be able to, create an account and should be able to join in and play and get into the fun in just minutes. But at the same time, like we want to develop, the map, the abilities, have different traits on the NFTs, really flesh out the strategy of the game so that it's something that you can kind of, log back in, week after week and still have fun, in a year or two from now. And so with, and especially with Web3, we know that the economic model and the progression model is very important. It's probably more important than all our previous games that we developed. So we've assembled, I think, what is a pretty strong team. So we brought on board our Web3 lead, Michael Arnold, who's a close friend of ours that we've spoken to for a long time. But he's basically the lead of all things Web3. He's worked on a previous game called My Crypto Heroes at a studio called Double Jump Tokyo in Japan, which was basically the leading Web3 game before Axie Infinity. He's also worked on a white paper for YGG. So he comes with a very strong kind of Web3 blockchain gaming background, and he basically complements our team with his experience and understanding how to build these economic models and systems. And so, yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting time to be building in this space, and we're building alongside a lot of fantastic games. So really excited to see what happens in the next couple of years when these games launch and we see how the players react to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The that integration of both experienced Web 2 game developers and builders, along with knowledgeable Web 3 experts, is essential. Where teams, I think, have a lot of issues is if they're really too heavy on one side or the other, because I think both are critical. And I mean, we've seen projects that haven't worked because they're basically just a DeFi protocol that someone's trying to slap a label on top of and say, oh, this is a game, that may not really be meaningful. And so, I think I like that you have a gaming background primarily within the team, but as you mentioned with Michael and some of the others, that you're going out and getting some of the talent that has experience in the actual Web3 economic components, which are for sure critical. One of the changes that I've seen among a lot of projects is the whole concept of play to earn. I think is really dying, and I think that's probably a healthy thing for the space. It's a fine concept in sort of a microcosm where maybe that's a mode of a game, or if you want to play in a tournament or something, it can be play to earn, but for the entire game to be based around that mechanic is not sustainable. And so
Mhm.
I think we see a lot more using concepts like play and earn, or play to own, play and own. I'm gonna put up on the screen for you and for our audience one of the structures that I've created just to help us think about the types of models, monetization models, and economic models that we may be using for the games. And so from this structure, it depends on whether the players are actually looking at the game as investments or assets, and whether they're focused more on the metagame or the economic side of the game, or sort of the infra game or the short-term gameplay loops. So using this as a general structure, where do you think that Mighty Action Heroes falls within this kind of a framework, or is there maybe a different spin that you'd like to put on it?
Yeah. So I think there are many very interesting viewpoints about play and earn, play to earn. A lot of kind of different takes on what works and what doesn't work. I think as a team, we've been very blessed to kind of be able to take a step back in the last year, as we're looking at this and see how a lot of the different kind of strategies for various teams and various games play out, right? I think it's quite apparent that play to earn as a model is not very sustainable in the long term, right? It's not very scalable. We've seen games like Axie take off and with very high growth at the beginning, but as the player base tapers off, as people are more aware of the price of the utility token, that reflects badly on the game. And even though they're doing a lot of very interesting updates, I think to the ecosystem, it hasn't really kind of been brought up to the same levels as before.
Mhm.
So for us as a team, I think we studied and explored quite a fair bit. I would say our kind of approach to this is pretty straightforward, right? So we're a team that first and foremost, our main pillar is really about building fun games that people want to play regardless. So we're really squarely on the kind of bottom part of your diagram there, where this is something that we want players to be able to log on and play because they want to be better at the game. They want to get first to third in every round. They want to learn with their friends. They want to jump into a match and play with their friends to de-stress or take time off. So all our games have always been like that. Players should be able to just play for long sessions. Um, where I think our kind of model sits amongst there, which is kind of interesting, is we don't think that there is we think it is more like a journey, right? So in our game, players start for free, and so when you're just kind of starting out, you're learning the ropes about the game. You really you don't expect to basically flip your assets or
Mm.
take the stuff that you collect and trade them on the market immediately. Um, so we expect players to kind of adopt maybe more play and own type of model at the beginning. Where we want to transition the player to is something that we like to call like skill to earn, where we want to reward like the top 1 to 3% or 1 to 5% of the players in the leaderboards in the ecosystem, where we see it especially with competitive multiplayer games. we want to reward really the players that are at the highest skill ranks. And that's also kind of where we see the current guild model shifting to as well, right? Like the current guilds and scholar relationships are not really sustainable long term. Like you can't just bring on board anybody that wants to play a game, because the moment they have better ROI somewhere else, they're just going to jump ship. So, looking at the current landscape for Web 2 and competitive games, we see us adopting a similar model, right? And we don't think, if there's one set kind of model that works for everyone. I think if you look at also like, digital economies that have worked in the last decade in games, very clearly the MMO model works very well. Like you think about very strong MMOs like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 15, 14, for example. These are economies that support players at all different skill levels, different journeys during their progression. So this is something that we want to model in our game. No matter what stage in your progression, you should be able to participate in the economy. At the start, maybe you'll be investing more heavily in your own self. Maybe you'll be buying NFTs in the marketplace, kind of like because you want to progress. But later on, at higher skill levels, maybe you're very good at the battle royale part of the game, so you are getting more rare components or rare rewards. Then you should be able to trade them and trade your effort and time for benefiting from the system. Just like we see how high performing guilds in World of Warcraft, they're basically being paid by playing the game because they have the setup and the ecosystem going. So we want to replicate that model. We think is sustainable and scalable in the long term. And I think because the space is so new, we also want to learn and share as much as possible with all the teams that are building in this space. So I think that's something that we are happy to be challenged on, and we want to evolve as a team. So I think that's going to be interesting for us to share and also to learn from our players.
Yeah, I like that model. And I think this is similar regardless of the industry that we're talking about. In one of my videos, I shared that imagine your hobby is not gaming. Imagine that it's like carpentry work or gardening, or you take your pick in any other hobby. If you're not very good at that hobby, you're not going to make much money by selling the product that you're producing, right? You're going to enjoy the hobby, but you're not going to expect to get paid for it. If, however, you are very talented and you spend time learning the crafts, and you can build some amazing woodworking things, or maybe you're actually very proficient at gardening, you can then maybe sell some of the value of what you're producing, and you can get paid some for that hobby. And in some cases, if you're very, very good, you could make it a full-time job. If you're great enough at something, people will be willing to pay you for it almost no matter what that is. So I think this carries over in a very clear parallel into gaming, exactly like you said, that if you are at the very top end of the skill cap for any particular game, you are producing some value for the community if you're able to share those talents in a meaningful way. So whether it's esports or other sort of competitions and tournaments and so on, are those some of the elements that you anticipate really building around within the community?
Yeah, we see kind of participation in the economy in different ways, right? So like you mentioned like crafting and being good at a particular role in the economy. So uh, when we're building out the game, that's also one of the reasons why we wanted to add a very strong like crafting layer to the game, and also the missions layer, because we feel like people will have varying degrees of success playing the game. There'll always be people that are really skilled at the battle royale part of the game, and we want to support those players as well. But then you might have somebody who is very invested in crafting, who is very invested in being able to find the right assets to tackle missions to earn the right rewards. So we have kind of been thinking about different features and systems that can support that. So something like, for example, a player role, in the economy, whether or not, maybe if you do a lot of crafting, you become a master crafter or something like that. And you get bonuses that reward you for being skilled at that particular action in the ecosystem. So regardless of what type of game you're creating, I think you should be able to develop systems like that support these kind of types of progression, which I think is very unique to games, and something that Web3 can really like lean on and support for the game, and to really make it a success. So
Hmm.
previously, when you craft something very rare in World of Warcraft or something, like if you want to put it out in the market, you might have to go on forums or leaderboards. But with Web3, it allows you to do it in a very trustless and in kind of official way, so to speak.
Yeah, that's for sure the case. So I'm really intrigued also in the concept of the quests and the crafting mechanics. I mean, it's obviously not something that you often see in a battle royale style of game, but Web3 gives us the capability of having that longevity, that economic game that's also running on the side. So in your white paper and in some of the AMAs, you've talked about having a mix of both active and more passive gameplay. So whether that's like through staking some of your NFTs or your assets, or some of these more maybe passive missions. So tell us a little bit about how you're going to try and strike that balance between active versus more passive gameplay.
Mhm. Yeah, so we want to have a good balance between both. Part of the reason why we wanted to have the missions is really when we think about DeFi or GameFi in this space. Finance is not very fun to a lot of people. So one of the things that we covered in the white paper as well is we want to be able to abstract a lot of the kind of finance or DeFi layers of the game, where we know that it's necessary for the economy to be sustainable and to be scalable, but at the same time, like we want to represent these things in the game in a more approachable manner. So, for example, like staking in our game, or NFT staking in our game, is called missions, right? So you have your heroes with different traits, different combinations of abilities. You have your equipment with different traits as well. Being able to mix and match these, and then sending them out on missions, which is essentially staking, and then collecting the rewards from there. So we want players to be able to engage in both in order to really thrive in the grand scheme of things. So if you're a player that you just maybe you just play the battle royale mode, you don't care about the crafting or the missions, you might get very good at battle royale, but you might have to dip into the market to maybe get some stuff or rewards or crafting components that you can't get from just playing one mode. So just like any MMO or game that has multiple play styles, like you really want to be doing a little bit of everything. But at the same time, the reason why we build these features and systems, because we know that not everyone is going to be able to play for 8, 10 hours a day. Not everyone's going to be very skilled at playing the battle royale mode. So idle games is something that I guess is quite popular in this region that we're based in. So we're based in Singapore, so Southeast Asia. Some of the most popular mobile games are all idle games, and so we want to support that style of gameplay as well in our game. So I think it was one of the first decisions that we made as a team, like we to add this kind of idle progression layer to the game, and I think it kind of it synergizes very well with whatever we want to build in Web3 as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so. The having different available modes for players to engage in is going to be critical. And it also strikes me that if you're someone that is great and you really want to focus exclusively on the battle royale, if you're good enough, then presumably when you devote all your attention there, you're not going to mind going out to to the exchange or auction house or whatever and picking up some
Mhm.
materials for crafting or whatever, because you're seeing much more benefit for yourself, and you're engaging in the game mode that you want, and vice versa. If maybe you're a specialist in mission running or in crafting, and you're not the best at battle royale, that's probably more me. I enjoy the battle royale style, but
Mhm.
my brother and friends always give me a hard time because I'm not really able to keep up with some of them, depending on
Yeah.
which particular game we're playing. But they also don't want to try and keep up with me if we're doing more of that macro type of gameplay. So everyone's a little bit more specialized in the way that we think and can play, and it's nice to have options for the different types of players within the ecosystem.
Yeah, and I mean, as a player yourself as well, you don't always want to be doing the same things all the time, right? So,
True.
if you play a lot of battle royale, you might get some rewards that somebody who's doing missions all the time might not get. So,
Hmm.
there are pros and cons for everything, but we definitely want to support all types of players in the game.
Yeah, and I think that's essential for sustainability. One other topic that I think is also essential is trying to make sure that you balance the current player base and new players. And this is not something that's specific to Web3. This is a challenge for any game because you as you said want to make the game easy to access and easy to get started in, but to have a complex high skill cap that keeps existing players interested because they have to keep getting better. They have to understand more of the mechanics over time. So how do you manage this with a Web3 integration where you are, I think, going to have the Genesis collection of your NFTs that will drop at some point in the near future here, and with that, you want to make sure that you've got an incentive for people that are following your project and engaged early to join, but you also don't want to preclude people from signing up a year from now or 2 years from now from playing the game because they feel like it's too late for them. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so when we kind of sat down as a team to discuss this problem, part of the solution is really to align the objectives of us as the studio with the community. So, because of that, we saw the current kind of free to play model where developers and teams are basically kind of like, creating new content, like new heroes, new equipment every single season to sell these directly to the players is not really kind of scalable in the long term, especially in the Web3 market. Because just imagine a scenario where you purchase a hero in season one of the game, and then us as a team we drop another 10,000 season one heroes. That's just going to dilute the supply and it's going to dilute the value of your assets. So it doesn't really align, with the community. So for us, we've developed the economy in a way where um, really as a studio what we want to be doing is to keep the players invested, creating new game modes, new systems and weapons and features that all players can kind of participate and benefit from. So with the Genesis pass, with Big Bear Syndicate, and when we kind of dropped the first set of NFT heroes to the first players in the economy, like going forward, we want to reward again, like I mentioned, the top 1 to 10%, 1 to 5% of the player base who are very skilled at the game. And I think recently there has been a kind of new term that has kind of came out, whereas they're calling them NFT factories. So you can think a little bit of these players as factories. So we will reward these players with NFT heroes, with NFT equipment, and going forward, like that's how we feel like the kind of the system and the community will benefit from having these skilled players play more. They will benefit from having these heroes to sell or to trade to the community. And at the same time, as a studio, we know that gameplay needs to be relevant. So, when we have new, hero drops every season, they might come with, exclusive traits. They might have specific abilities that previous heroes don't have, and how we tackle the problem where all content is still relevant. Like we've done that before with live ops and live events in other games. So we might have an event that only season one heroes can participate in that drop a reward and stuff like that. So there are a lot of different levers that we can pull. But I think the main kind of the main idea behind this is that we want to make sure that we as a studio build the most fun game possible, and then we focus on generating secondary revenues from the players because they enjoy crafting. They want to contribute more to the economy because the gameplay is fun, right? And then they want to keep crafting new equipment because the equipment is relevant. So that kind of all is a little bit uh, you know the team and the community has the same synergies in terms of like what we want to build and what we value in the ecosystem.
Hmm. Hmm. That makes sense, and I think that also kind of answers sort of why and how you're choosing to integrate with Web3, because a lot of studios, they could be doing everything that they're trying to do in the Web2 space. And I always get a little concerned when I see someone trying to build, and basically there's no need to be using anything in the Web3 space at all. You could do everything in Web2. That's usually a red flag for me that maybe, and there's nothing wrong with capturing hype, but in a lot of cases they may just be trying to leverage the existing hype around the space to to gain more visibility to their projects. So you'll have shared from a structural standpoint that you're going to be on Polygon, which I think is definitely one of the the top current chains for scalability in Web3 gaming. I see most projects are looking at Immutable X and Polygon as, and then there's a number of others that are also kind of out there. But anyone that I think chooses either of those two, they've got a good baseline, at least as far as we can tell right now. What are some of the features that led you to that decision? What are you prioritizing that steered you to Polygon as opposed to some of the other options?
Yeah, very early on, I think we decided, to discuss, a couple different partners. Polygon was one of the front runners from the beginning, just simply because, it's one of the leading, like, carbon neutral scaling solutions out there. We knew that we needed, we were expecting the game to have, require, quite a number of transactions. We wanted something that it was green because and with low gas fees. So that was that kind of whittled down to a couple options, and Polygon was right up there. We also wanted to be EVM compatible because we know that as a studio, as we grow and scale the game up, it also gives us the most options in terms of tooling, in terms of marketplace support. And so we also love the team at Polygon. So it was they've been very supportive of the game, supporting the studio with connecting us to partners, advising us on, everything from like on-chain analytics to, what other game teams are also doing in this space. So I think it's been a very helpful relationship between us and Polygon, and I think, the devs' first choice was also to build on Polygon. So when we, as a product team, we were like, okay, well, let us evaluate all the other different options first before we just pick, the first one that you guys like. But eventually, it was also the right choice from a product perspective. So I think we've been very happy about that.
No, that's good. And I think the number of infrastructure partners that are necessary to make a game like this work is pretty high. You mentioned some of the others, not by name, but what other partners or infrastructure providers, supporters that you've been working with have been really helpful? And where have you found you need that support and engagement?
Yeah, so as a studio who's coming from Web 2, we don't really need a lot of support in terms of like building games or understanding the games from the Web 2 perspective. So we tried to surround ourselves with a lot of valuable strategics in the space, right? So I already mentioned Polygon. We've also worked with a number of like tooling partners. One of them is Transpose, which we're very happy with to kind of look at on-chain data. The others you can also see on our website. We partner with a lot of guilds and different kind of communities in the space to kind of understand our audience better. So we want to know like which parts of their audience are cross compatible with ours, and then how do we make our game better to support these players who are very engaged in the space. So yeah, there's plenty of other partners. I think there are some that we're working on right now as well that we can't really say. But yeah, I think as the game get closer to release, I think we'll be able to share more of those. And I think there might be some interesting partnerships that maybe players don't expect.
No, very, very good. That was actually for me the first thing that I think gave me a feeling that y'all were serious about building in the space was the initial AMA that you had, where prior to that, we'd only seen, I think, the light paper that had been rolled out, and the Discord was pretty early on. And my concern with, frankly, any studio that's coming primarily from Web 2 is that they may not get the space. And when y'all had the very first AMA, I don't even remember all the details, but there were at least 7 or 8 times when the speakers and the interviewers and the questions that came in, it became very transparent that you have people that understand Web3 and understand the culture, understand the community concerns. And that really for me was the sign that, okay, this is a serious project. Whether they had that knowledge in house already or they brought people in to help share that with the project team, became very apparent that you all get it. And so I thought that was really positive, because I think you have to have the ability to get engagement now with primarily Web3 natives, but you also have to be able to scale to bring in folks that are not very comfortable with Web3, or in many cases may even dislike the concept of crypto and blockchain in their games. And so you've got to have both aspects of that in the project. So definitely recognition and kudos to you and your partners that have worked on that, because it was very transparent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for full context, like we've been looking at this space since 2018, really, even before creating Battle Royale and Disney Melee Mania, and this was during I would say the 2017, crypto the peak where the bull run happened, and we sat down as a team, and this was around when CryptoKitties first launched as a product in the Ethereum space. Very very exciting times. And we sat down as a team and we discussed, like, would it make sense to create a game at that time? And we were very genuinely interested in that space already, but we felt like it was still too early. Like we would not have been able to make a good game. The studio size and the team size was also not really suitable for creating a product that would make sense at that time. So we took a step back, and obviously we worked on the next two Apple Arcade games, which helped the studio grow in terms of team size and profile as well. And yeah, late last year we sat down and we decided, like, now's the perfect time to jump in. Obviously, we didn't expect the events of the last couple of months to take place, and with the bear market that we're in. But I think that's also interesting that the team, we announced our $10 million dollar raise a couple months back, and we managed to raise the same valuation even after the market crashed, and I think it's a good validation that for the team experience and also the product. And right now the people that are in the space are genuinely devoted to really making sure the tech is there in the future. There's a lot of interesting talk about the GameFi and the ownership models going forward as well. So I think now is definitely the perfect time to jump in and contribute meaningfully to the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair that as a bear themed studio, you should be comfortable building in the middle of a bear market, and
Yeah.
the investors recognize that too. One of the advantages that you may have from a timing perspective, I think it was probably in retrospect a wise decision to have waited for the past few years, because I like to think about Axie and some of the other products that launched over the 2020s, 2021 time period and saw the big run up. I consider those like a first wave of products. And they had some great exposure for possible utility in the space. So proof of concept, if you will, for how this could evolve. But there were also some substantial missteps. And I mean, those teams have recognized that and communicated it. And what we see now is the second wave of builders that are working to develop are, I think, doing so in a much more sustainable way. And so this may be a case where the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. And so it's sometimes better to be a fast follower rather than the pure pioneer, in the sense that you can learn from what went well, but also what needs to be adjusted.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we hope so as a team that we hopefully will learn from the past mistakes or learnings that our partners and friends in the space have also seen in the last couple of years. And there's a lot of teams that are building games now that are also genuinely pretty exciting. And so we want to learn and share as much as possible. And I'm sure along the way we may also make certain mishaps, or we might have certain learnings. And definitely I think the space is so new that we don't really treat our other games in the space as real competitors. Like we want everyone to succeed, and we feel like that's the the only way that the space can really make it is if we have not just one or two really good products, but genuinely like space to support like all sorts of different types of games, just like in the Web2 space.
Yeah, and I think that will drive not just players but also other builders to help support the ecosystem, whether it's content creation or it's analytics tools or it's infrastructure platforms. And I really appreciate that about the ethos for many of the builders in the space. They recognize it's not a zero sum game. Right now, there's very limited numbers here. But if people begin actually building meaningful things, it's going to grow. So you mentioned some of the projects that you're working with and you share information on. What's one or two projects other than Mighty Action Heroes that you're particularly interested in or impressed by, and why is that the case?
Yeah, so it might be surprising, but we're also pretty close to other kind of games that are very similar to ours. So like we recognize and we speak a lot with the team who create Blast Royale. So we know Neil, who has a similar kind of partners and investors from us. So we again, like, they have a different approaches from us for several things when it comes to the economy, but we're also learning and seeing how that plays out. And we're also looking at different teams like Skyweaver, from Horizon, that Peter, who's advising us on several different things as well. So again, like, we don't really consider teams as real competitors. I think we're all learning from each other in the space, and some teams are going to ship earlier, some teams are going to ship later, but definitely we're open to working with and collaborating with a lot of similar games.
Very good. So you mentioned shipping activities. So I'm not going to press you for the when question, which is obviously the one that everyone always asks. But in terms of your roadmap and where the studio is going for the next months, what do you have that's coming up? What are some information that you can share with us about what to expect for the rest of third and fourth quarter of 2022?
Yeah, so right now the priority for the studio really is the PFP collection, the Big Bear Syndicate, and it's a 10,000 supply project. And what the kind of utility of the PFPs will be is, apart from in the standard PFP benefits like joining Discord, unlocking exclusive roles and stuff like that, being an early holder basically gives you early access to the game. And so you'll be able to, be alongside us as we build the game, and contribute by playing the beta builds, being the first in line to give feedback, and really contribute to how the game develops over the next couple of years. And at the same time, we will also be rolling out the PFP staking mechanic, which is called hibernation because they're bears. So you'll be able to kind of hibernate your bears and then collect honey. And then using those honey, you'll be able to unlock supply crates, which will contain rewards for the game when it launches. So it's really quite good value if you want to stick around in the long term and play the game for a long time. So the focus and priority for the team is really to make sure that the PFP drop is successful, and we give players a very good experience for that. And then likely we'll roll out early access to the game at the end of the year. We will probably roll it out to larger and different communities later on, maybe Q1 next year. And then we hope to have a global launch next year. So in the meantime, I think the best way to keep up to date with whatever we're working on is to definitely join our Twitter and Discord. We're running spaces and AMAs all the time. And especially now with the Mint coming up, we're having different collaborative AMAs with all our partners. We also have a Medium page that we post pretty regularly on. And I would say the best thing to do right now is to join the Allow List giveaway raffle that we're doing. We have quite a number of spots left, so definitely just join the raffle and follow us on all our socials.
Like the original tweet where I shared this video, and then retweet it to one other person and explain to them why you're interested in the game. I'm going to select one of the most insightful responses from all those that respond, again, within the first 72 hours after we launch the video. Good luck, and now back to the interview. One of the concepts that many folks are interested in when they think about Web3 gaming is this point around interoperability of assets. There's, in my mind, several interesting advantages that would bring, but there's also several disadvantages. How do you maybe personally or as a project see that evolving? Do you envision that someone might take their Big Bear Syndicate characters into another world in the future? Do you have any plans for partnerships in that space?
Yeah, so for us, Mighty Action Heroes is really the first game in the ecosystem that we're building. So we're calling the ecosystem MightyNet. So by kind of getting Big Bear Syndicate PFP or by playing Mighty Action Heroes, you'll be getting NFTs and assets that you'll be able to use across all the games that we develop. While at the same time, we know that we also want to support NFTs from other games, and that's something unique to Web3 that we can provide for the game. And so we're discussing with a lot of potential partners and partner collections to be able to use their NFTs in our game in really unique ways. So we don't really have a lot to share right now, but you can expect to be able to, for example, use a partner NFT and then use them as an avatar, unlock special skins. We might also allow you to potentially stake your partner NFT for rewards in our game. So we don't have a lot of specific details to share now, but I think this is something that is fairly exciting for us as a team because we've never been able to discuss these sorts of partnerships with our other games or other partners. So I think these partners are also very excited to be able to actually have something in the game that they can give away, and it's a tangible asset that people can see in their wallet. They can share with their friends or sell them. So I think it's a fairly exciting time for us to be building something like that for our partners as well.
Oh, very, very cool. Abel, any other particular points you want to highlight for our audience? I think you've given a really good background for the project. Appreciated sharing some of the general building points in. If you've got any alpha or anything else you want to drop right now, I'll certainly give you the platform to do so.
No, I mean, thanks for having me. The team is super excited to be building in this space. We are fairly new, and so we definitely want to get the word out and start building awareness over what we're building. As a team, we're not the type of team to go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a CGI trailer and then ship a year later. We're really the sort of team that we want to keep building and showing the players what we can actually deliver and getting the game to our players as soon as we can. So we'll let the game do the talking, and definitely follow us on all socials and stay up to date with the latest news. And we can't wait to show you guys what we've been working on.
No, I think that's a great way to summarize it. We'll let the game do the talking. So I appreciate that mindset. Well, Abel, thank
Yep.
you so much for joining me today. Just as a note, as my listeners normally recognize, I'm going to put links to the project, the studio, Discord, everything in the description below. So if you haven't checked them out, certainly encourage you to go out and join Discord, listen to some of the AMAs, and stay involved and aware of what's going on, because I think as we know, September and October are going to be some big months for Mighty Action Heroes.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll update our players as well on any mint changes or mint specifics, because we know that the September is going to be a month with a lot of different things happening, especially with the ETH merge. So we want to make sure that you guys are up to date, and we'll primarily update through Discord.
Sounds great. Well, Abel, thank you so much for your time. Have a good one.
Thank you, Eddie. Thanks for having me.